Hi, freelance editor Miranda Darrow here with a discussion about writing a solid opening to your story. We're in the editor's window right now for the annual RevPit online novel revision contest, where each of our fabulous participating developmental editors are giving away a full manuscript developmental edit to one lucky author each. There's a bit of luck involved, but it's not a random drawing. The editors are picking a story and an author that they want to work with. And the best way to get my attention as a participating editor is with really powerful opening pages. In the RevPit annual contest, I start by looking at the query letters on the first 5 pages. Your first 5 pages are your first impression. And if you don't make a good first impression, there are so many books out there. Readers and gatekeepers will put it down quickly and move on. Unless it's required reading in a classroom, people have choice, and you need to grab their interest right away and get them invested in your main character and their goal, motivation, and conflict, so they'll want to keep reading to find out what's going to happen to that main character. So how do we make this a story that when somebody picks it up at the bookstore or looks at the sample pages on Amazon or an online distributor, that they can kind of quickly get the feeling, this is the kind of book that I'm going to enjoy, and I'm going to want to turn the next page. First, you want to make sure you are starting in the right place, the best scene to be able to both ground your readers and connect them with your main character. One example could be if it's starting too soon. There's examples of this in classic literature where people had a lot more patience. And then that would be like the entire beginning third of Jane Eyre, where she's a child and she's living with her horrible uncle and her aunt. And then she's off at boarding school. And all this is happening before she ever gets to Rochester's house. And it's just like, get to it. Get to it. So modern readers would probably not have enough patience for the first third of Jane Eyre, even though it was establishing some background. Some authors are starting a scene or two too late, with a bunch of characters standing around reacting to something that just happened. I like finding this when I'm editing for clients because it's a relatively straightforward issue to fix. Hey, you know that important scene that everybody's talking about? Rather than telling us about it, why don't you show it? This is an easier scene because most of the authors have already seen this whole scene in their head. They just didn't write it down. And this is easier feedback to give, add one more scene, than, hey, this 50 pages of backstory, you need to trim that because we need to start someplace stronger. So starting in the right place is hurdle number one. And it's okay to try a bunch of different scenes as your potential first scenes and share them with your critique partners and see which ones land the best. I give presentations on openings in which I walk through my 6 essentials for a powerful opening, which includes my CUPPAS, C-U-P-P-A-S method. That stands for character, unique voice. Yes, that one's a little bit of a cheat, but I needed a vowel. Plot, premonition, action, and setting. I am not going to walk through the whole methodology in this week's video because I don't do hour-long videos for YouTube every week, but this is a topic that I do cover in online writing summits. So if you're on my newsletter list, I give updates on online writing talks, and often there are options to watch live for free with paid upgrades or other ones. So that is a presentation I give pretty often. I'm not going to go through all 6 elements here, but I am going to tackle one. The first one, C for character. And in your opening, you need to introduce your reader to your main character and establish their goal, motivation, and conflict. If possible, you should also introduce their misbelief. What is the idea that is holding them back that they will need to overcome? If they have a dynamic character arc and they're going to grow, show all of that with your character. So for C for character, we want to know who they are. We don't need to know about what they look like. We don't need to know their eye color or their hair color. These are the least important details when it comes to really getting to know who your character is. Physical description details can come later. And to the extent that you think they're necessary, this description should ideally come from somebody else, not your heroine looking in the mirror, describing her long silky hair. But we do want to know what's in their heart, what's in your main character's soul, and what's their goal, what's driving them, and what's holding them back. And if they have a character flaw, a misbelief, some lie that they believe that they're going to need to overcome, give us a hint about that. Sneak it in there. I chose this one to talk about C for character and grounding the reader in your main character out of the 6 elements, because openings that do not feature your main character are standing between the reader and them having a chance to get to know, like, and identify with your main character. What's going to want them to keep turning the pages if they find out that the character in the first pages is not the main character? And then we get this new other main character, and now we have to try and identify with somebody else. So that is why prologues that do not feature your main character are usually not the best place to start, because we get invested in some other character and then we don't get grounded in who the main character is. I've read some stories with prologues that feature a story's main character, but much earlier in life, like 10 years before. And these usually have an engaging scene where something has happened to the character when they were a child or a young adult. It's a source of their wound and misbelief. And to me, these could work, but only if they're really short and we quickly get to see the character at the age and in the place in their life where they are now. These are scenes that don't need to be cut completely, though. They could be shown later as a flashback or a memory when explaining the source of that wound. Most of the time, I'd recommend starting with the character the age they are now, with the goal that they are now. This is all backstory that you could add later. You don't want to spend too long in the past. Start with them at their current age, if possible, and show these younger scenes later, because a person from years ago does not have the same goal, motivation, and conflict, doesn't have the same stakes, and the longer readers are spent investing in this past version, the harder it would get to ground them in who the main character is now. Also, prologues are a bit controversial. Some agents say they skip them or just don't read a submission and don't even want to bother with a story that has a prologue. And if you have people who skip it, readers do this too, and start with chapter 1 and skip your prologue, then any grounding and world building that you've done, they've missed it because they skipped it. I know, it's a risk you take. That's the risk you take because there are people who skip these and start with chapter 1. As for the RevPit contest, every year we get authors who ask us when I'm submitting my first pages, do I send the prologue or do I start with chapter 1? And my usual response is start with how you're going to send out your submissions. Because we, the RevPit editors, want to be able to help you and encourage you, and we need to know how you're going to be sending it out. And if you really think you should be starting with chapter 1 and not your prologue, why do you even have it? Is it something that could be a flashback or a dual timeline or something later on? If it's that important, lead with your main character in grounding the people in who they are and what they're trying to accomplish, and find another way to work it in. And the last point I want to touch upon is openings, is to make sure you're setting up the readers to be asking the right story questions. I call these story questions, which are what the author wants the reader to be focused on, like will the main character reach their goal and how, or what's going to happen next, or who killed Mr. Body, or what's in that box. Starting in the wrong place or not having the right balance of the 6 essential elements of an opening can leave readers asking the wrong questions, like where are we, when are we, who is that? These are not the really engaging ones that are going to drive the readers to stick with it. So goal, motivation, and conflict can present a story question, which is, are they going to get their goal? Even if it's not a mystery genre, there can always be a little hint of mystery, like what was that? Who wrote that note? We don't know what's happening. Somebody got a mysterious text. Who's it from? That's a story question. It's the kind of questions you want your readers to be asking to motivate them to be going. So you should have a series of story questions, at least one from the start. And then as story questions get answered, make sure there's another story question presented so people can't just say, oh, it's solved, and put your book down. I like to think of it as like the first few non-terrible seasons of Lost, when we were like, oh, what's a polar bear doing there? Who are these people in the jungle? Why is this hatch here, right? All of those were great story questions that kept us going. But then they didn't know how to wrap it up. That was a bummer, but they started out strong. So little small areas of curiosity that the readers will pique their interest and make them continue to want to keep reading. And you don't want to wrap them all up in the middle and not leave an open story question, because that's a very easy point to say, oh, that was good, and close it, even though they still have half left. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for new videos every week. Next month, we'll be diving into a new genre with 4 more videos. See you then. Happy writing!